Well, welcome back to another Coffee and a Chat. Uh, Today's video is by request. I've, had several people before say, can they ask questions, suggest, make, requests, not suggestions necessarily, but a request for a certain video or on a certain subject. And I've always said, yes, absolutely, I would love that. Well, I finally got one. So I'm celebrating. Anyway, I got an email yesterday from a sweet mama who has her oldest one leaving the nest. I'm assuming, I may be wrong, but I'm assuming this is the first child to be leaving. That's not always how it works, but often. And with her struggle, I would assume this is the first one that's leaving. And so she just wondered if I would be willing to share my experience, my transition, how I handled that when I went through my nest getting empty. And so first I'm going to give you Marvin's his little two bits of advice, the difference between a mother and a father. He said, well, I'll tell you what I'd say. I'd say as soon as that kid's out the door, I would call up my friends and say, we are having a party. Yeah, I tried to assure him that's not usually how mom feels about it. It is, I know in my experience, it was very difficult to have my children leave. Even though there were some days before they left that it was like, oh, I can't wait till you grow up. You don't really mean it. You're having a bad day. They're driving you a little batty. But when you really come face to face with their leaving, it's difficult. And I wouldn't say that it ever got easier. It just was different with each one. And probably my concerns were a little different with each one. So for me, when the first one left, I wasn't ready. I was not ready for that. She did not leave right away when she turned 18. She stuck around for a little bit, but then the day came when, hey, Mom, she had a job, she could support herself, and she was ready to spread her wings. And let me say this. I'm not sure that there's anything more challenging than being a parent, honestly. Especially, as a mom. From the moment I found out that I was pregnant, I began to watch over that baby. I began to make changes in my life to make things better for that child. I changed what I was eating, my exercise habits, everything to ensure a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby. I talked to that baby. I sang to the baby while it was still in womb. I prayed over that baby. I read scripture to that baby. I tried to do everything right because I was going to give birth to a very godly child. It didn't always work out that way, not in the beginning. So then they're born. And then there was the new challenge. I no longer hold this child in the safety of my womb, where I know where it is all the time. I know whether it's asleep or playing, whether it liked what I just gave us for dinner or not. There was this sense of separation that was really difficult for me to grab hold of when that baby was born, even though I was thrilled to be able to hold her in my arms and see her face and see, this is who you are. That was all great. But then it also meant, the nurses would come. We need to take your baby for a little bit. We need to go, run some tests, or we need to weigh her or bathe her or whatever. And it was like, I didn't like that. And back in those times when I was giving birth, the nurses ruled and they told you how it was going to be with your child. So that was really difficult for me because, where are you? What are you doing? What are you doing with my child? And I'd had C-sections. So I wasn't really able to just jump out of that bed and chase them down the hall. And even if I had, they would have blocked me out. So things were very different back then. Our babies didn't stay in our room with us. They stayed in the nursery, and they were brought to us to spend little time with us, to feed them. And then it was always, Mom needs her rest. Here, we're taking the baby back to the nursery. I hated that. I could not wait to get home where I would be able to protect that baby 24/7. But see, even then, people would come over and, be holding my baby or wanting to babysit, why don't you go have some dinner or something? I'll watch the baby. Oh, yeah, it opened a whole new set of problems for me. See, I did not have the greatest childhood. There were a lot of secrets in my childhood. There was a lot of people that my parents trusted that were doing bad things to me. And I think that made me even more on guard because nobody was going to do that to my child. So I was set from the get-go, from the moment I knew that baby existed, I was set on protecting them. And I soon learned that no matter how hard you try to protect them from everything, you can't. I think that when my daughter left home, when the first one left, it was a lot like when I gave birth to her. Even though there were times when she could make me miserable and crazy when she was living in the house, to move out, man, I wasn't going to know she got home tonight. I wouldn't know she was in the safety of her bed because I always did bed checks. And if my kids were out late, I kept getting up until I knew. I could not go to sleep till I knew all my little chickies were in the nest and everybody was fine. Now I wasn't even going to have this one in the nest. How would I know? Even if, she called and told me she was home for the night. This was before cell phones. She could easily leave and go somewhere else. She could have been calling me from somebody else's phone. It's not like there was caller ID or anything. How would I know? So there was a lot of fear for me when that first one left. You see, like giving birth brought on fear. Well, when they went to kindergarten, that brought on another fear because now they're going to spend a few hours with somebody else who's going to be teaching them who knows what. And are they going to really protect them if something happens? What if somebody bullies them? Will they stand up for them? What if they fall down and scrape their knee? Who's going to make them feel better? I was having to trust the school system now to be involved in raising my child. I didn't like that. And then came when they got their driver's license. Oh my goodness, now they got a whole new freedom. They can get in that car and go somewhere and I don't know where they really went or what they're really doing. And I think by that time we had pagers. But it didn't matter because my kid never answered the page. Oh, I was busy, Mom. I was driving. I couldn't find a phone or whatever. So that was another thing. And then when they'd have, start work, oh, that was the biggest one. I think that's when the worst influences happened in my children's lives, in all three of them. They were now out there making money, and money's power, and they were making decisions and choices and going places and doing things and meeting people that I didn't know who they were because they worked with them. See, from the moment that child is born, I guess we're constantly going through learning to let go a little more at a time. And letting go was never my strong suit. So when my oldest moved out, I will tell you the truth. I had so much anxiety, so much fear. I wanted to call her all the time. Why don't you just come by for dinner? Why don't you I tried everything I could to keep her coming home and to keep her there. That independence thing worried me. Now, when the second one left home, a couple of years later, I was a little more prepared because I'd been through it once, but it still was stressful. Now, when the last one left, he left because he got married. He stayed home for a while. He was a baby of the family. He was, several years younger than his sisters who were close in age. And I think he liked being the only child. And he had it pretty good. And I guess, you probably are. I was older when I had him. We probably were more relaxed with him. He was a boy. I didn't worry so much about bad things happening to him. Mistake. Bad things happen to boys too. And it was different for me. Now, when he finally left home was because he was getting married. But he didn't leave home when he got married. He stayed for a while. He got married and he lived with my first husband and I for a while because they were getting a trailer from a friend of theirs in a trailer park, but he was still living in the trailer till the place he was moving into was ready. And it was just one of those, we just need a place to stay for a few months, Mom. So they did. And I loved having them there. I loved my daughter-in-law. She was like a daughter to me, just very precious. I love her to this day. And that was a little bit easier, but then the day came. Oh yeah, when he backed his pickup to the front door of the house and started loading their things in it, and they moved into their own place. Yeah, a few years later, my husband I bought the trailer next door to them, and we moved in next door to them. And at their suggestion, they told us it was for sale, and we were trying to simplify some things in our life. And so then, like a year later, they built a house, and they were gone, and there I was. Yeah, kids are always leaving us. And it took me a while to come to that place where I was at peace to go, okay, you know what? I'm all right with them having left. And now this opens new doors and new opportunities for me, and I'm good with that. And by the time my son had left, I was already a grandma a couple times over. And so, there were grandchildren that would come visit, and I think when the last one left, it was a little bit more gentle of a transition for me. The first one, oh yeah, totally caught me off guard. So how did I get through that? Well, I'll tell you this. Like I said, I think parenting is the most challenging thing that we can do. And we try to teach them the right things. We try to guide them in the way they'll go. But the thing is, at the end of the day, they're going to make their own choice. They're going to make their own decision. And you know what? Even though I didn't like that, it's what I did. I got married way too young, moved out. I was not ready. It was legal. I was a legal adult, but I tell you, I was not ready. Did I do everything? Of my parents' kids, I probably was the most cooperative and did what I was supposed to do. I never snuck out of the house. My brothers, that was their middle name. If I told you I was going to be somewhere, I can think of one or two times when I might have made a couple of side stops on the way home that my parents didn't know about, but I panicked the whole time that something bad was going to happen. I lived in so much fear that I was a pretty obedient child, but I still made stupid choices and stupid decisions, and I put my parents through agony, even being a good kid. It's part of what happens. My parents, they made their own mistakes. I made my own mistakes. It doesn't mean that, when people say, oh yeah, I know you made that mistake, but I need to learn for myself. That's stupid, guys. It just is. If we can learn from somebody else's mistake and save ourselves the heartache, we should. That's wisdom. But there is that thing in us that wants to break free, that wants to do their own thing. And that's what we did, and that's what our kids do. So your first child's moving out. You hope you've done the best you could do, and I'm telling you, you have. We always look back and go, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, that hindsight thing. But the truth is, we love our children, and we do the best we know how to do in that moment. Now, we get smarter on down the road, and then we're going, oh, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that. But the truth is, where we were in that moment, when we were raising them, a good parent, a parent who loves their child, is doing the best that they know how to do, the best that they're able to do. So you did do your best with your child. Now they're leaving. They're going to spread their wings. The day was going to come. We all knew it. And you're not going to be able to go with them. You're not going to be with them everywhere. And it's not that even that you're worried that they're a bad kid and going to do bad things. Some of them, yeah. Let's be honest. Some of them, yeah. We're very concerned about the choices they're going to make and all. But even if we're not worried about that, are they going to be safe? Who's going to protect them? Are they going to be lonely and scared? How are they going to adjust to things? What are they going to do if they don't have enough money and they're caught somewhere? And, we worry about them being safe, about them having what they need and being okay. That's why we become such great enablers as parents. Yeah, I get gold stars in being an enabler, a rescuer, a fixer. But the thing is, I started to get better when I accepted that this is life. This is what happens. No, I can't be there with them and protect them. And it turns out, even when I thought I was protecting them growing up, things happened that I did everything to stop them from happening, and still things happened. So I can't even trust myself to be adequate to protect them anyway. But God is. So I think for me, being able to deal with all of it was I became a praying parent like I had never been before. That would be the first thing. The second thing was accepting that they're going to choose their own path. Oh, I think most of us, we have dreams and things for our kids that we want them to do with their lives, but they're going to choose their own thing. And they have a right to, just like we did. I didn't want my parents to choose my path. I mean, now I look back, when I left home, I would have been smarter to let my parents choose my path. I would have been wiser to let them make some of the decisions I made. They would have done a better job than I did. But I wouldn't have grown up, because part of growing up is making bad choices and making mistakes and not always doing it the right way, learning to rely on God. So being a praying parent, number one. And number two, releasing them for the joy of the freedom of growing up and making their choices in life, whether we agree with them or not. Giving them the same opportunity that we had, that our parents had, to go and make our way, make our own mistakes, make our own, have our own victories, because it's not all bad. And loving them and rejoicing with them, making sure that that communication line stays open. And nowadays, oh my goodness, there's so much more available than letters or phone calls. We can video chat, we can text, we can email, we can do a lot of things. And even being able, if you're flying, I don't fly anymore. I did that for a lot of years. And I think my flying days ended. The last time I was on a plane was, I believe, 2016, when I flew out to my mom and dad's to pack them up and bring them here to live with Marvin and I. I've not been on a plane since. And I have no desire to get on one. I'm not even sure I would fare very well on a long flight. Even a short flight would be challenging for me. So, yeah. But when I was younger, yeah, hopping on a plane, going somewhere, being able to go see my kids or whatever. So making yourself available, but not taking over, not pushing ourselves on them, and keeping those lines of communication open, that no matter what happens in life, because maybe you've got a kid, you're worried about the choices they're going to make. I mean, I haven't just empty nested for my kids, but I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 22 grandkids that have lived with me part-time, full-time at some point in their growing up, which will bring me to another point that I'm going to, a little nugget of truth I'm going to share with you here. But letting them go is, and spread their wings and do their thing. Yeah, it's challenging. It's hard. And, it doesn't get easier because it's the grandkids. And a lot of grandparents are raising or helping raise their grandchildren these days. So, we have to look at that too, with that nest getting, because some people thought their nest was going to be empty. And it wasn't. Even when Marvin and I got married, our one grandson lived with us off and on. And sometimes he was with us full time. And there just was a lot of things going on there. Okay. But then we added my mom and dad. We had a daughter and a granddaughter that lived with us for a few months. We were married almost 7 years, I think 6.5 years, almost 7 years before it was just Marvin and I. We started out our marriage with a full nest that would get sometimes a little fuller and sometimes a little less, and and up and down. And now our nest is empty, pretty much has been for a while, but it may not be staying that way. And that's the other thing, that maybe this will give you peace if you're having a hard time with your kids leaving the nest. You ready for this? They never really leave. That's a lie. They come back. And when they come back, they a lot of times are bringing others with them. They'll have a spouse, some kids. That's how I've had some of my grandkids in my home. I remember one winter, back when I was married to my first husband, we lived out in the country, and there was terrible, terrible snowstorm that buried us in several feet of snow in the area where we lived. Then the cold dropped down to, I think it was 20 below. I remember walking outside and trying to breathe and going, ooh, I had to go back in the house. I mean, I couldn't really even breathe that air. Okay, so we had our oldest and her daughter. They showed up. Our middle one, her husband, and their son showed up. Our youngest and his wife showed up. They didn't have any kids yet. But anyway, everybody came home to us because we lived out in the country, and our water system was buried deeper than what things ran in town. We had a lot of frost-free things in place. We had a well, we had generators if the power went out. We had food. That seemed to be a big one. So all of a sudden, they just started showing up at our house because their pipes had frozen down. They had power outages. They didn't have a source of heat. I mean, all kinds of things were happening. So they loaded up their food and their clothes, and they moved in with us I think they were all there for like 2 weeks. And when the snow finally melted and went away and they went back to their homes, I was okay with it. I wanted the peace and quiet of my home back. Not that I didn't enjoy it, because trust me, I enjoyed every moment of giggling grandkids and grown kids that were acting like kids again, and and going through old photo albums and sharing memories. And 24 hours a day, I swear somebody was in the kitchen fixing something. There was always somebody up. And nobody was on, because they couldn't go to work or anything. So it wasn't like a regular schedule. So if they were tired, they slept. And if they were hungry, they ate. And my son-in-law and my daughter-in-law were the two that were in the kitchen most often. The two of them were in there always fixing some kind of snack. And we probably all gained a lot of weight, drank hot chocolate around the clock. I mean, they had brought food from town, and I already had a stash there, and there was no shortage of food to eat. And truly, it was a load of fun that, while they were all there. But I was tired, and I was so young back then. I was in my 40s. It wasn't that bad. But when it was time, that they could go back to their homes, I was ready for that too. So my sweet sister that sent the original email, yes, your oldest is leaving, but she'll be back. They come back. And I started to learn to celebrate the things about them growing up and spreading their wings. My son, when he was having his first house built and becoming a homeowner. And I was so happy for them and so proud of him and, what he had done with his life, the different jobs they got and the careers, and how all three of my kids had different jobs where they advanced up to where they were in management. They may have not started there, but that's where they ended up, and just very valued by the people they worked for and stuff. So I was very proud of their successes, of celebrate every time a grandbaby was born. Since Marvin and I've been married, between us, we've had 2 grandbabies and a great grandbaby born that we've never got to see in person. And I pray for the day when that won't be the case anymore. I want to throw my arms around and snuggle them babies. Hopefully they're not in college yet, by the time that happens. But however it is, it's in God's hands. And that's a big key. It's in God's hands, the whole thing. I think when I left the nest, let's say, and Marvin and I got married and I left where my kids were, moved 3,000 miles away. Yeah, they were pretty mad at me. They didn't get it. I think there was a lot of upset, a lot of resentment and all, because they did not, I don't think they really grasped hold that it was not safe for me to live there. It was not physically safe. It was not emotionally safe. And that God is the one that opened the door and brought Marvin to me and brought me here to heal me. That there are things that God's been able to do in my life that would not have happened if I had stayed there. And I think that, slowly some of them are getting it, because I've even had grandkids mad at me. You just up and left us one day. Well, no, I didn't just up and left. You had more than a year's warning that I was going, because Marvin and I were engaged for a year before we got married. And, there was plenty of time to make a transition. It's just everybody kept believing I'd changed my mind. I wouldn't really go. And that just wasn't the case. I did go because it was the right thing to do. So they've had to let me go. And, and right now, unless they come see me, it's texting or phone calls or video chats is what we've got. And my one daughter does come out fairly often. Her job allows her to travel and all. And so I think it's a little easier for her to do that. But oh my word, the last time that we had, the other night, was that just last week? Marvin and I had 3 of our children sitting at the dinner table with us for dinner. And just listening to them laugh and talk and tease. And, it was a wonderful dinner. And I remember looking at Marvin and going, we've got 3 of our kids. And there, 2 were his, 1 was mine, but there's a lot of love between them, and it was a delight to sit there and just take it all in. So I think too that part of letting them go is there's a new appreciation when they do come around and they do have those visits, and that gets sweeter the older we get. So it's a big transition for them to leave the nest in their own lives, but it's a big transition for us. And so, my sweet sister, you're going to be okay. You will be sad. You will miss her. You will have some times when you may just sit down and have a good cry. Do it. Go for it. But also know that God has her in his hands. And the greatest thing you can do for your child when they leave the nest is the greatest thing you can do for them when they're in the nest. And that's to pray over them, pray for them, and to trust them into God's hands. Okay, I hope this somehow helps, encourages you. I didn't do it all right. None of us do. But I learned from it, and the more I surrendered to God in it and realized he's the only one that really can make a difference anyway. I can't protect them. I can't fix everything for them, and I'm not supposed to fix everything for them. We want them to get that independence. We want them to have that relationship with God themselves, because they're going to need it. And those of us that have that relationship with God, I was just saying to a friend the other day, we were talking about all the different things that were going on in her life, all the things going on in my life. And I said, one thing I know for sure, I would not want to do this without God. And she was like, oh no, never. And I want my kids, I want my grandkids, I want you to know that, to get that in your own heart, in your own soul, in your own mind, that your dependence and your trust and your hope and your faith is in him. All right. I love you guys. I'm going to let you go. You have an awesome day today, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye.